Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello, and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today, I'm excited to talk to Keith Bruton about Murder on the Dodder. Welcome, Keith.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome back, I should say. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Well, you brought us a second book in my favorite Hitman series. The first one was called The Lemon Man, and that's about Patrick, who's a hitman with OCD, should I say?
Yeah, mild OCD.
Mild or wild? I'm not sure
mild.
It's mild. Okay, since you're the author, I'm gonna say okay. So I did, before we started recording, I asked you about this. So the Dodder is a river in Dublin, is that right?
Yeah, there's three main rivers in Dublin. The main one is River Liffey, which is the equivalent of like the River Thames in London or the River Seine in Paris. And then there's two other ones called Tolka River, and then the third one's called the River Dodder. So yeah, it's a much smaller river, but it goes through the south of Dublin. It's like a creek going through Dublin.
Right. Well, I love it because when I first saw the title of the book, and I told you this also before we started recording, is a Dodder is someone who progresses feebly and unsteady. And you have certainly banged up Patrick really big time in the second book. So what was your desire as an author to torture your character?
And initially when I wrote this, for some reason, I like a title to start off the book. And sometimes that doesn't work out. You change your titles at the end. But for some reason, I had Murder on the Dodder. I don't know what it was. I wanted the killings to happen on this small river throughout Dublin. And what I wanted to torture Patrick as well. so that's why I brought in his gun seller / bike repair man, Jack McGee, who's a 70-year-old gun seller, and he sees Patrick. Patrick sees him as a father figure. You know, he's taught him how to use guns. He's taught him the ropes basically, because Patrick, his father left him when you find out in the first one, left him when he was 10 years of age. So Jack McGee kind of took over that role as the father figure. So I was always going to do something with someone close to him. So I think that the best situation was like, let's take Jack McGee. He gets kidnapped, and how much will Patrick do to find him and get him back? And he's willing to do a lot. And that could mean murdering people that he doesn't want to murder. You know, so it's interesting. He's caught in a sticky situation, you could say.
Yes, and you know, you do such a great job in showing Patrick's love for Jack, which is a nice thing, because I do think, you know, we hear people say in general, especially parents, you know, I would do anything for my child. Or maybe someone will say, I'll do anything for my best friend. Here is someone who really, he goes the distance for his friend, someone that he really, truly loves. Mm-hmm. And I thought you did a really great job with that.
Yeah, like you could see, he's not going to have many friends in this circle being a hitman, you know? So the contacts that he does have, whether it's his boss, the Bronze Man, who runs a pub called the Crazy Owl, or his love for his escort girlfriend, which we see throughout the book, who he's constantly battling with because he has to lie about what he actually does for a living. He explains, he says, I work for the bike repair shop, and she's not buying any of that crap because she can read through his lies. You know, he's coming home, coming home banged up every time and bruised. And yeah, so he has Jack McGee, he has Olivia, he has the Bronze Man, he has a street contact called Junkie Jake, which I call JJ. And he's close to all. They're like family. They're more than just friends. They're actually family, and he knows them over a decade. So they're not just throwaway friends. These are people that are really close to him. So I think he's willing to go as far as saving them and getting hurt for them. So yeah.
That's nice. All right. So now I have a strange question for you, because you bring it up in your book. So Can you tell us about your favorite pub crawl?
My favorite pub crawl. Okay, so I mentioned this in the book. I mentioned the infamous pub crawl called the Baggett Mile, and there's 750 pubs in Dublin, which is it's psychotic when I think about it. But there's a few streets, but this street called the Baggett Street. You could do the Baggett Mile, and there's like probably about 15 to 20 pubs, and these pubs are like they're historical. They're like there since the 1700s. In one of the pubs called Toners, you'd have James Joyce would go into. They have pictures of James Joyce going into these pubs. Samuel Beckett. It's the great thing about Dublin is there's no shortage of great literature and great writers.
True. That's true.
When you walk the streets, you'll see plaques. Bram Stoker, born in this building, who wrote Dracula. Jonathan Swift, who wrote Gulliver's Travels. James Joyce, Ulysses, and you could do his walk around the city. And they have like plaques everywhere. And then you got Oscar Wilde, one of my favorite writers. I love him. And you could go and see his family home. And then across the road, you have his statue, just laying down on a brick, on a big boulder. You see his flamboyant kind of statue. So there's so much history in the city, and a big part of that is the pub scene. And the Baggett Mile is infamous at Christmas time. Everyone tries to do the Baggett Mile. You do 12 pubs. The time you get to pub 5, you're done for. You call it quits, and it's all ages. It's not just young people doing it. It's everyone. Work colleagues try to do it. All ages come and try to do it, but it's just a mess. It is, but it's good fun. It's good fun.
So I will say that when I read that part, I'm like, you know what? I think Keith has been following me around. So I have some friends that do 12 bars of Christmas in West Hollywood. I made it to bar number 5 before I was completely blind and cross-eyed. And I was so sure I was going to make it through the whole thing. Only 2 people made it through the whole thing because it's an impossibility. And
the problem is in Ireland, you drink Guinness, you drink pints of Guinness, and you can't drink Guinness all night. It's just after 5, you
right. And then of course coming with a shot, because you can't just do Guinness. You have to have a little shot to go with it. So, but when I got to that part, I'm like, I think you've been following me around, and I loved it.
Yeah. You haven't been to Ireland, have you?
I have not yet. It's on my list.
You have to come to Dublin.
Well, with 750 pubs, I'm going to need to bring an extra liver.
I know. There's a pub in Ireland called the Brazen Head, and it's like 700 years old. They have the original brick on the wall, and everyone takes pictures of it. So it's crazy.
Wow. It is crazy. I will say that one of the things that I loved about your first book, and it continues to the second book, is you give shout outs to several restaurants and pubs and sweet shop. And then, of course, I am that Google person or Instagram person, and I go and I follow them on Instagram and stuff. But it's fun. As with the first book, we tour Dublin with Patrick. Yeah. You give us turn by turn, and we tour Dublin with Patrick, and that's a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I only live 15 minutes walk to the main part of the inner city, so like I'm only down the road, and I do have books. I just actually want to show. I have a lot of books on Dublin. Just this one here is called the Statues, Sculptures in Dublin City, and I got a lot of information from that and tour guides and stuff. But mainly just going out to the restaurants and the bars and the cafes, walking the streets. That's the only way. You have to leave your house to get these ideas, and you have to enter these cafes. You find out the hard part of writing the book is the plot, coming up with the idea, the actual main plot, because there's so many great crime thrillers that come out every year. It's just this year we're going to see kidnappings, we're going to see children getting kidnapped, we're going to see every plot that's going to be repeated over and over. It's whether you can come up with a unique voice and a unique twist, and that's the hard part for me. Coming up with the characters and the streets, that's the easy part. I love writing that. The minute I go into Google Maps or I walk outside and I see a park, I just want to write about it. I see a statue.
I love that.
And so I think there's a bit more detail in the second book. I think there's more detail on like architect and like the statues and the streets and specific cafes and restaurants. Hopefully they're there in 50 years time. They might be all shut down and they might be outdated in the book.
No, so all the ones I've seen, and of course, the favorite one of all, just because I love the Queen of Tarts. I thought, oh, I love that name. So, so also tell the readers there's a statue in the River Dodder. What is that statue?
Oh yeah, the rhinoceros. No one knows how it got there. It's a big bronze statue of a rhino, and now there is talks of taking it out. There's been local talk in the area that they want to remove it, but I don't think they should because it looks great in the. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it.
I did, yes. So of course I did look that up. Yes,
it's a bit wild.
It is a bit wild, but it's so funny because it's something that's endearing and it's something different. Mm-hmm. So it isn't something. I mean, I don't think rhinoceroses roam all over Ireland. So I mean, the fact that they chose a rhino is something really, really fun and unique.
Yeah, it looks great. It does, and he cycles over. He cycles over one of the bridges, and he just pops his head, and he sees this big bronze rhino in the middle of the river. It's just wild. It's a wild scene.
I love that. So, do you personally ride horses?
I don't ride horses, no. But I do have a fascination with them. There's because Ireland they breed considered to breed the best horses in the world because we have the rain and the grass and the countryside. So we have all these stables in Ireland, and we breed these great horses all over the world. And horse racing is huge in Ireland as well. It's on 365 days a year. It's on every day. It is. And a couple of years ago, I went to the Galway races, and that's one of the biggest events. Like 50,000, 60,000 people show up in over a 4 or 5 day period. So I've always had a fascination with horses. I would love to ride a horse, but I think I'd fall off it, to be quite honest.
Well, I will tell you, it takes a lot of inner thigh strength because you really do have to grip onto the horse. Once you get up on the saddle, it can be easy to fall off, but to stay on, you have to really grip it. I particularly love horses. I love going to horse racing. I like riding horses. I like talking to horses because I may be a little crazy like that. But horses are very sentimental is not the word. They're very intuitive. Yeah. So I enjoy being around.
They're majestic, aren't they? They're majestic.
They are very majestic. So
I remember I went to. Sorry to interrupt you because I get excited talking to you though. I remember I went to Kentucky. Not the Kentucky races, but the Kentucky Derby. But I went to a Kentucky race, and that was amazing. That was, So so I have a fascination with horses as well as you do.
So you in Murder on the Dodder, Patrick kidnaps, for lack of a better term, a miniature pony. So how did you come up with the idea of the miniature pony?
Well, originally it was a donkey.
Okay.
Originally it was a donkey. And then I was looking up information online, and there's a lot of like shows with miniature horses, like circus acts and show horses. And I was like, that might be a spoiler, but yeah, that's in the book.
No, I hope it's not a spoiler. I don't think so. I think so I find that anytime someone has an animal, it's a conscious decision because, had you hurt that animal, you would have been canceled. So animal. So let's just be clear. The animal is not hurt in this kidnapping. It is moved from one place to another, and it arrives safely. Yes. And so there's no injury. Yes, because I would not like someone to be hating on you because they think we injured an animal. The animal was not injured.
No, it was not injured. I tried to make Patrick Callen as likable as possible for a hitman.
Well, and you do a good job at that. I mean, I think that everyone roots for Patrick. I mean, he's in a lot of ways, even though he has a job that takes people out, he's very conscientious about what he does. I love the fact that he wants to talk to each person beforehand so he can find out whether they need to be taken out or not. Yeah.
And you see that in the open scene, scene where he cycles to the cemetery, which is only around the corner from me. It's a very creepy cemetery. There's a lot of famous people buried in it as well. Oscar Wilde's father is actually buried in the cemetery. There's a lot of famous Irish people buried there, and he talks before he kills his victim. He has a little chat before, reminds him what he did before killing him. But yeah,
That's right.
I think why the reader probably gets roots for Patrick is probably because the victim, they're the kind of the lowest of the low. These people that he does kill, it would change everything if he killed someone innocent. I think if he
I
killed like
agree
a
with you.
young, and I've read that in books. I don't know if it's Ken Bruton's books. I don't know if you've read Ken Bruton before. I think one of his characters accidentally kills a boy, and it's just the character kind of spirals out of control, and it's kind of like his demons come after him because he's accidentally killed this little boy. And I don't want to go too dark with Patrick. There is humor in the book. I think the second book is a little bit darker because in the first one the baby stole the show, kind of thing.
Absolutely,
It stole the
absolutely.
show, and I didn't want to continue on with the whole kind of baby thing. I kind of wanted to switch it up. If anyone's read the Lemon Man, Patrick Callen actually finds a baby on his first hit, discovers the baby and takes him, and the whole book is kind of him like becoming this kind of father figure to this kid. So this one's very different. This is very different. This is all about saving his mentor's father figure, Jack. So yeah.
But you do sort of bring up a baby a little bit. You know, Patrick has a little bit of a ticking clock in him, which we usually refer to as a woman. So we might think that Olivia has a ticking clock, but Patrick at one point mentions the fact that he sees perhaps he and Olivia with children. And I did like that because that too gives him much more humanity because he's thinking about the future.
Yeah, I always think, is he delusional because he can't keep on doing this killing for long term? You know what I mean? I think he would always want to settle down, buy a house, and have that. Is it just a dream? And every time I introduce Patrick, it kind of feels like it's slipping away every time. You know, he's not financially there. It's not like he makes millions from killing people. It's the jobs come and go. He kind of has an addiction to it. I think he likes the role of being a hitman. I think he's good at his job. He can be sloppy at times, but I think he does enjoy the kick of being a hitman. But he can't have it all. Can he have the girlfriend and be a hitman at the same time, or does he have to quit the hitman game? And I don't know. It's a tough decision he has to make in the future. You know.
It is. I think that you certainly are going to. He's going to have dilemmas in the future that he's going to have to deal with, or he's going to have situations where he's going to have to make some choices. And of course, that's when you leave the hitman territory and you go into writing romance novels.
I'm not doing romance novels. I might do romance novels under a different name, a pen name.
There you go. So do you have, I know you're Irish, but do you have tartan colors?
What do you mean? Like, is that Scottish? Is it?
Yeah, well, that is Scottish, but you know, a lot of people cross pollinate. So does your family have a particular tartan color?
No, they're all pure Irish.
All right.
All big Dublin heads, yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, you know, I have tartan colors. That's just because I wanted a nice kilt. So, you know, I just adopted whatever I could find online that fit my outfit of the day. So
I wish I did. I wish I had an aunt or an uncle that lived in the south of France or Italy or something like that, and I could go over to their villa. That'd be great. That would.
Totally agree with you on that. I have some friends that they're like, oh, you know, we're going to spend a month in Italy. And I'm like, fine, go. I hope it rains every day. Because I'm not that nice friend. I really hope it's terrible.
At least you get good weather in California.
We do. It has rained a lot this winter, which has been unusual for us. And when it rains here, I'm freezing to death. It can be 60 degrees and I'm shivering. It's the craziest thing. Yes.
I don't know what that is in
it's probably I'm going to say 18, but I'm sure I'm wrong. So whoopsie. I'm sure I'm wrong.
It's definitely not that cold. It's freezing here. I'm all depressed reading about hitman books.
Right. So once again, I just love this. I love the humor that you bring to your books. And I love the fact that you've given us a hitman that we can relate to and root for. I think it's well done. Once again, the book is Murder on the Dodder. Highly recommend it. Do you happen to have a website or social media you'd like to share?
So my website is keepbruton.com. So I was able to get that a domain.
That's
For
straightforward
Instagram,
enough.
it's Keep Bruton Books. And I'm on Twitter, it's just Keep Bruton. And that's it. Yeah.
All
Those are
right,
the three main
perfect.
ones. Instagram's probably the one I use probably frequently because it's more engaging, I think, with book reviewers, So that's, yeah, Instagram.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Thank you so much for joining me, and hang on for me. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at OutWithDan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at Go Out with Dan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.